We finished a great Rumble Up training a little bit ago with Dursey. I will not make the same remarks that I did early about the value of grassroots and organizations like FreedomWorks, but I will tell you, as I said before we get started, that FreedomWorks, in my view, is the premier grassroots organization in the country. They do a great job at research, developing candidates, helping candidates find their message and their messaging. They work with the Hill. They work with some of the greatest leaders on the Hill, Jim Jordan, Mark Meadows when he was in Congress, the Freedom Coalition. They are a great, great resource for county chairmen and activists across the country. We had Rumble Up training earlier. We hope to use that in Harnett County for getting out the vote and making sure that we get our conservative candidates from the president all the way down ballot elected. And then this afternoon what we're going to have is some voter engagement, door knocking training. Dursey Texera, who is the grassroots director at FreedomWorks, actually did this for the Leadership Institute. He's well versed in this, and he's going to share his insights on how to engage voters in a positive way, how to get your message across, perhaps not winsomely, but persuasively. Okay, and here we go.
There's that word again.
Cool. Normally this is a slideshow, but we're not going to be doing that today, so I'll just use this for myself for notes. So how many of you have actually, gone out there and done some door knocking? Basically everybody. So, yeah, more or less. So as was mentioned earlier, door knocking is extremely rewarding in the sense that, you get a big bang for your buck, if you will, per contact. When people see a smiling person excited to be there at their door on behalf of a candidate or an issue, they're far more likely to feel for you and, sympathize with you in a way, and then also be more receptive to what you're saying, as opposed to, which some of you are already seeing right now with the text messages. Some people are very brave through, a screen. They're less so in person and usually a bit more polite and can actually engage with you for an issue or a candidate. So I broke this training up in 3 parts, basically. And the first part here is things to think about before even door knocking at all. One thing might be a checklist before leaving your house or your office here or meeting location, what your team should look like, and if eventually you find yourself in a position where you're cutting walkbooks, either paperless or through an app like Advantage or i360 or whatever, we'll talk about that too. That might be applicable for some of you now, might not, but we'll touch on it. So basically, before anything, it's important to understand you as a person, as a volunteer, and as a campaign team have limited time and resources. So it's very important to be as efficient as possible with voter contact. So Maggie was telling me earlier there's 20, how many Democrats in Harnett County?
25,000.
So imagine spending your time hitting 25,000 people who are never going to vote for you. So it's very important to know who your supporters are. That doesn't always mean Republican, because I love primaries. So, sometimes you're talking to Republicans who are not going to vote for your person. So I guess to emphasize here, and how I'd also talk about Rumble Up, is data is extremely important. Mm-hmm. And you don't get good data right away. You get good data by interacting with that data over and over again. So over election cycles or over a couple of months leading up to an election, you'll eventually start knowing who your supporters are and where they live and all that sort of thing. And you don't need all fancy money to accomplish that. In something like, this is just a county. If you did start a game plan and took your time, you could already, people who live, I'm sure Maggie can tell me where Democrats live on this map, more or less. Usually they stick to certain neighborhoods. Republicans, same thing. So right off the bat, you're kind of already more or less knowing who people are. But anyway, so I'll go on to the next thing here. Oh, also, you need to know how many votes does it take to win. That's a big important one, because that's how you start managing your time and resources. So basically, this is a long thing, but to summarize, usually it takes 3%. It's okay. So let me break this down. So usually in every election cycle, you'll get the same people voting Republican and Democrat, guaranteed. Doesn't matter if it's Trump. It doesn't matter if it's George Bush. Doesn't matter if it's Mitt Romney. They're voting Republican. Doesn't matter if it's Obama, Biden, Hillary. They're voting Democrat. But you do have other people who might flop. So you have some people in there. Well, before you even get to that section, you have people who are always going to vote third party. You have people who will, no matter who is in front of them, they will 100% vote Constitution Party, Libertarian, or Green, or whatever, always. So once you factor all that, you're at a large majority of potential voters, which is actually the minority of the population, because the majority is non-voters, by far. So if you all vote here, you are in the minority, which is where we're at. And people like Maggie and myself are in the super minority. People who go out of their way to try to make a difference, and organize and do that sort of thing. So ultimately, after you do all the math on that, you're left with 3% of the electorate, basically. And so to win, you need that 3% basically plus 1, which will put you at 51% of the electorate. So that makes it very manageable now, because if you start with every potential voter in Harnett County, for example, you're at multiple thousands, tens of thousands of people. Once you do the math and you start saying these people are always going to vote this way, and then et cetera, you're left with a very manageable group of people. Now, you might not know who these people are yet, but you will. So you don't know who they are yet, but hopefully after you start door knocking and phone calling and texting, you'll eventually identify, hopefully, more or less who they are. So on election day, you can hopefully count their vote. So that's some important thing to know, is that really you only need to influence a small minority of people, because you're always going to be guaranteed certain things to happen in an election. And most elections are not surprises. Donald Trump was a surprise, maybe, to some people, but most elections are like, yeah, that was going to happen. If you think of the thousands of elections that happen in this country from the local level up, most of them like, yeah, it's about right. Next thing, appearance. I wish you could see me. I'll try to. I have some. Let me make this bigger. So, can you see that? So, the thing is, both of these are wrong.
Yep.
So, well, number one, just appearance.
There is
Do you-
nothing wrong with Metallica. I'm just
So,
saying. How dare you?
basically, a lot of new people go out like this. Tell me what's wrong with that.
Which one do you
The
pointed?
suit guy.
They're unapproachable.
Yes,
Stiff.
both of them are extreme.
Why is that? Like, why is that bad? If that guy came to my door, why is that
Because
bad?
he
I
looks like
think
a
he's selling
salesman.
insurance.
Exactly. He looks like he's trying to sell me something. Especially if he's a young 20-something, he's just another YR trying to, get elected for something. Probably doesn't even care about the issue, just wants some position of power.
Also, I couldn't relate to him.
Yes. Yes. So it's exactly that.
Yes.
And why is this one bad?
Even though I'm casual. No, well, even though you're narrowing your sphere of influence, there might be some people that really think that's outrageous
And there
Yeah,
may be
exactly.
people
Kinda
that
on
don't
the-
like Metallica, so
right.
Yeah, I'm a Beatles person.
So
Motown.
basically, the key here is to look like the people that you're trying to
reach.
influence,
Yes.
right? So I would probably go out in this neighborhood like this, more or less. That's probably fine. Everyone in this room is more or less fine.
Except the sunglasses. Gotta let them see your eyes.
Yes.
You can have them on your hat, but not on your face.
So exactly that. So you want to be comfortable, number one, because you're going to be out there for a bit. But
Yeah.
number two, you want to look like the people you're trying to influence. So when they see you, you're just another local. It's very important. We don't want to turn people off with this, and we don't want to have people think we're trying to sell vacuums with this.
Please don't say that word.
So,
The other thing is, should you not be
We just-
dressed
I
head
think
to
we
toe
just
with
got
Trump
toast.
stuff on?
so that is depends, right? So are
If you don't know who you're supposed to. Well, today's different.
Yeah, so we can actually talk about that real quick. I've gotten a bunch of questions on that before. Do I want to wear something that represents right away my position? Some people ask about
They may not let you in.
Some people asked about name tags. I think the name tags are mostly pointless because we'll get to it. If you're doing your job correctly, you should be addressing who you are right away. But the shirts, I think shirts are fine if you're like, okay, like if they didn't like your shirt, they're not voting for your guy. Like, if you showed up with a Trump shirt representing the Trump campaign and they right away didn't like it, nothing you could say from that point would
It
probably
changed their mind.
yeah. I would say though, like if you are helping a candidate or something like that, make sure their shirts aren't like that. So make sure they're very like big. Trump, like that's all purposeful, right? Like they think about that. So it's very big, name of candidate, maybe an office, and that's basically it. You don't need to go too much. You can get creative, but understand the more you have on the shirt, the more it distracts, and the less they're seeing candidate name, maybe party, maybe office. Most importantly, don't look like a burglar. So
Take your face mask off.
basically, yeah, don't
There we go.
walk around, dressed in all black with like a mask.
And your gun. Don't
You
let your
know.
gun sit there. And...
Guns, yeah, it's another one. So I don't. If you want to carry for comfort, do. I probably wouldn't have it showing. People,
Especially with your
But make
mask
sure
on.
you have a permit.
Yeah. So another question we get is: should people go out in pairs or alone?
Pairs.
It depends.
I think pairs.
I could walk any neighborhood in this country alone, probably, because
But
I'm
you're not a
very
woman.
comfortable.
But you've been doing this for a while.
Yeah, I'm very
Yeah, I don't-
comfortable at what I do, and but the thing is, here's what you have to think about. So again, back to the time management and resources thing. If I have this room, and these are my only volunteers I have
Oh,
for an
sure.
entire election cycle, well, I'm sorry, but ideally I'd like you all to go out alone if it's a safe
Yeah.
neighborhood.
Yeah.
In the beginning, though, totally legit. If you have someone who's more experienced on the team, Maggie or someone else, and they go out with a new volunteer, totally fine. For like a day, few
Right.
days, couple hours, whatever you gotta do. But in my opinion, solo is best just so you maximize your time and voter contact. But it depends. If it's an unsafe neighborhood, yeah, like probably go together. It just depends. So things to pay attention to too. If any of you ever manage a campaign or something like that, there's a big difference between a volunteer and a paid door knocker. You're all
Never
here
heard
because
of such a thing.
No,
well,
me neither.
there are people who hire locals sometimes, hire college kids, whatever, to go, knock some doors on their behalf. Nothing wrong with it. Honestly, if you want to spend your money on that, go for it. But I think there's what to understand here is a huge difference. So you're all here in this room because you probably care about a candidate or you care about an issue, and that's what you're passionate about. So, if you volunteered for me or something, I'm very aware of that, and I know that you're giving up personal time to this cause. So you really want to be careful with that type of person. So for example, you work for them, which means they're there because they believe in you, or they believe in the issue. So you really should treat them like they're everything. Because Maggie might attest to this. Volunteers are like very hard to get.
Yeah.
To get somebody to go out and knock for 6 hours or something is unheard of. It's very hard. So if someone gives a couple hours a week, awesome, and let them know that you appreciate it. And if you are doing local door knocking, try to keep the people that are representing you somewhat local.
Yeah.
Just so when pressured about an issue, they kind of have a response. And then of course they are paid people. These people, if they're on your campaign, you want to make sure like they're actually doing their job. So you can be a little bit harsher on them, but I want to emphasize here, volunteers are like precious, is what I want to say. Volunteers are like very rare. They're there because they believe in something, and you really want to be careful with them. So.
That's the
Yeah, so these are for
Advantage
cutting
app.
walk books.
It's what?
That's the Advantage
So,
app.
Yeah, so you can see
It's pretty
here.
cool, actually.
I think these are examples of good ones, yeah. So these are what we call good books. So like, you can see here, so many houses. You can see there, very easy to walk. Pretty easy to walk. Terrible. So, right, you have to go down here to this house, and you have to go back up, and then eventually you gotta end up over there.
And come back around.
It just sucks. So this is something to keep in mind.
So closer together.
If you
better.
end up cutting books, something to keep in mind. Now, sometimes you can't help it. Like Harnett is huge.
Yeah,
So sometimes you will have that.
but those Advantage apps help with that because they show you where
Yeah.
the accumulation is.
Yeah. So this is more to keep in mind if you're end up cutting books. Remember that whole time and resources is limited. So do I want to start in the most rural part? Do I want to start in the more populated parts? Well, again, it depends. Where are the voters?
I
Where
would
are
say
your
start in
supporters?
your neighborhood first.
Yeah.
Your own neighborhood. I mean, I lived in my neighborhood for 20 years now. I actually know where all the Trump voters live. And so when I got this, I thought, oh yeah, I know which ones to knock on. Well, I got the app and it said, oh, this one's true red. We don't need to really go there. Go to the pale red
Right.
ones. Go to the pale, blue ones.
Yeah.
So out of my 100 houses, I had 10 on my app because everybody else was already taken care of. So that was a huge. I would have just been knocking on my own street all
Yeah.
day for no reason, really, and not getting to those people that didn't even know what's going on.
So, basically at this point now, you know how to dress, all that sort of thing. So now it's the, checklist before you leave the door or the office or anything like that. You want to make sure you have, this all sounds very common sense, but believe me, what's common sense isn't always what people do. So
Just look at the news.
you want to make sure you have your phone charged and, if possible, an external battery.
Mm-hmm.
Again, maximizing time is the name of the game. If you only have one Saturday to give and you really want to go help this candidate, try to be out there as long as you can. Plenty of literature.
Yeah, I don't like to
You
go
know.
out empty-handed.
Plenty of lit. So you don't have to, oh, I ran out, but I still have 3 hours that I was going to door knock. Then you have to go back and get more.
Maggie has that excellent handout that's sitting in that info box at the front door that tells about all the Harnett County stuff and where you can find it. If nothing else, you don't have anything else, give that to them.
And then, this one. Just make sure everyone has the correct list and has all set. So before you leave, ideally the person who's organizing the whole thing should just make sure everyone has their walk book, they have the correct walk book, they just have everything all set. It's very easy if you're doing paperless, for example, to print something twice and then you give one person one walk book and you give another person the same walk book and then they get out there and they're like, why are you in this neighborhood? Oh, because Maggie gave me this list. She gave it to me too.
Maggie
So,
would do that.
Betcha. Give me a chance.
and then gas, of course. Make sure if you're driving around, your car is gassing it. Sounds straightforward, but it's not uncommon for someone to maybe come here with a couple miles left in their gas tank, and then they realize, oh shit, I have to go to the other side of the county.
Bleep.
Leap.
Afterward. Bleep after.
Now you're out the door, you're dressed properly, and you're ready to go. Couple things we'll talk about in this section is how to approach the door, how to message, and how to deal with authority, HOAs, police.
Mhm.
Sometimes you get the cops called on you, and people
Yeah, HOAs are very
don't
important.
like you in the neighborhood.
And a lot of them are no trespassing.
Right.
Yep.
I
And
don't
we'll,
do
we'll,
that.
we'll, we'll
You
definitely
can't
talk
step
about
foot in
that.
Anderson Creek without having a Mother May I from somebody.
Yes. So, the approach. So, profiling is actually really good. And I'm sorry if that offends anyone, but if you work to win elections, profiling is what you gotta do. So, clearly, you may not be able to read this, but
I know.
there's a lot of,
Can't see that.
it's a very Democrat car. Okay? It's a very Democrat car. So, if you were walking up some neighborhood, some driveway rather, and there's like this car that just has like Hillary all over it and all kinds of stuff. And
Then you don't want to go there.
should you assume this person's going to support your candidate?
No.
Probably not. Now, I'm not saying don't hit the door. Feel free, honestly. I've hit doors that have had our opponent's signs on the house, and then this one was a guy came outside and I was talking to him. He's like, "Oh no, my daughter supports that person. I don't even."
And that's what I was gonna say. Sometimes their college age
Kids, yeah.
children are at home and that's their car.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
really, like, what happens if you go to that door? Like, they're not gonna kill you most
Nothing.
times.
You just waste a few
Like,
minutes.
you know what I mean? So just go to that
Maybe or
door, figure it out. You ID them as not supporting or supporting. Move on. Again, back to the whole point of like time and resources. Like, if we don't have that voter ID, for all intents and purposes, we might be back at the house again. So it's very important to be IDing them as a supporter, undecided, or whatever it might be.
And that data is valuable.
Yeah.
Do you have a checklist that you give out?
So make yourself obvious. What does that mean? So that means if I'm walking up to a door, right? You wanna have your hands visible. You wanna look normal, whatever that means. But you wanna look like you're not about
going
to
to
assault
attack
them or break into their house. Generally, do you have literature?
Right.
And a whole bunch right there.
Yeah, like literally any candidate. Sure. So, okay. So this one doesn't say vote, but sometimes they do. They'll say vote in like big letters. So generally I'll walk up with lit, we'll just show him. Like they see like I have something in my hand. And so once I get to the door, actually what I'll do, and then you want to step back a little bit. So step back maybe like here.
Yeah, don't be in their face.
And, have it, this seems like it's forced. It is forced, but I do it. I have my literature, like kind of just like this. You can have, some people have them like this, some people do this. I have my lit just like this because I want them, when they go to the window or something,
To
which
see
is 90% what they do, to see vote.
Yeah.
Or see Donald Trump's face, or see, in this case, Tillis, or whoever's face. I want them to know that I'm not selling vacuums. I'm here for the election. So also, I don't know if I touch it on the next slide, but I'll mention it now. You've all seen this probably, when you go to the door and they peek through the window.
Oh, sure.
So I anticipate that. So what I do is I knock on the door, I back up, right? But I'm looking at that window the whole time. And so as soon as I see them, I'm like, "Oh, hey, how's it going?" And at that point, like, they know, I know,
Busted.
and so they're gonna come to the door. Sometimes they don't, but like usually they do. So again, most important is IDing them. So if they open that door, whatever happens in that conversation is super important to record. And we'll get to that. Yeah, the hand wave. If you're walking up their driveway and they happen to see you walking up, just wave.
Yeah.
Hey, how's it going? They're gonna be like, "Can I help you?" They're gonna be like, "Yes, I'm here for the election on Tuesday. Are you a Republican?" "Yes." Okay, so this is literally play by play how it goes most times. Yeah. So
What about saying you're a conservative instead of a
whatever you think works for that particular area depends, I guess. If you're working a primary, use the word figure it out. I don't know. If you know you're hitting hard conservative area, hard Republican area, maybe it's not even worth saying the word Republican.
How
say
about if you
conservative.
just say, are you voting? in the
You can
upcoming
say that,
election?
but they usually ask you, quite honestly. Most people are immediately like, are you
Yeah, well, that way you don't have to say it, let them say it.
Yeah. So the interaction, so now they've opened the door, you're talking to them. Body language is incredibly important. Don't just, look at the ground. Don't stand like this, like you don't want to be there. Look kind of a little bit high energy. Look excited to be there. Look like this guy, right? See? This is all purposeful. Like they know what they're doing. Look at this. Look at Oh, that guy. See? So.
He got a small picture, I wonder how that happened.
Right. So. This is another one. So never be condescending to a voter. It's really never going to get you anywhere. So. Maggie and I were talking about this earlier. A lot of voters are just normal people who don't have all the political knowledge you might have. They just care about how they're gonna feed their family and they care about their next paycheck. That's it. So they might not really understand what a primary is. And quite frankly, I've worked all over this country and most people don't understand primaries. Seems simple, but they don't. So you will go up to a door and he's nodding his head. This situation will happen where you walk up that door and you say, I'm here for candidate X. And they say, no, this is how I say it. I'm here for candidate X for the Republican primary. And they'll say, I vote straight Republican. Yes, sir. They're all Republicans, right? So you don't wanna make them feel So just say yes, sir, and make sure to vote for name this Tuesday or whatever.
Okay.
So at least if they, again, Maggie and I talk about, if they're planning to vote, they're gonna vote. So first off, primary voters are even the more minority of the group we were talking about. So that person might not even vote. But if they did plan on voting, at least they have that name in their mind. And they have a smiling person that came to their door and had a great interaction with them. The alternative could have been you've been like, no, sir, they're all Republicans, and now you make them feel dumb, and that's not good. So, also, you all have probably worked with scripts of sorts. Scripts are great as starters, but I basically will look at a script once and I'm all set. So you don't want to sound like a robot. So really what scripts are for me are just guidelines. So you look at them and you're like, okay, these are the points we want to hit. This is where we want to lead the voter so we can get a certain answer back. If that answer is, can I count your vote, you want to ask certain questions. That answer might be, how do you feel about an issue? But ultimately all a script is just a guideline to get to a certain point, to get a certain response. So play it how you want, and again, it might even depend, each interaction might be different, right? Some people are much more excited to see you in front of their door, other people are not, so you want to cater that interaction, case by case. Avoid mentioning opponents, big deal. Big deal.
Mhm.
I'm not here to give the opponent any name ID
Right.
at all.
No
They
name
can get out and knock their own doors and make their own phone calls. I won't throw shade. They don't exist to me. So I am here for candidate X, and that's it. So what does that mean though? Because you're gonna get asked this question. You're gonna get asked, who are the opponents? All the time. Who they're running against. So I usually prepare something for that. So when I was in Michigan, actually I worked for a state rep race, and our opponent in the primary was a mayor and a school teacher in it was very rural, so one of the only other cities in the district. And when I say city, it's 4 streets, but she was a mayor, but also a school teacher. So when they would ask, who's he running against? Oh, the place was called Wayland, was the city. Oh, just a school teacher from Wayland. Now my guy was an incumbent state rep. So I'm never going to give that lady legitimacy by saying, no, she's a mayor. No, she can go do that herself. So I would say, oh yeah, just some school teacher from Wayland. What's her name? I don't even know. I can't recall.
I just can't think of it right now.
But Steve's great. Steve's a great guy.
Back the conversation around.
So, you know,
Gosh, I knew you were gonna ask me that.
yeah.
It's on the tip of my tongue.
So basically that, and have, okay. Yeah. So unsure about something, don't lie to them. Also, very important. So volunteers sometimes think they're helping by just trying to fabricate things on the spot. I think most volunteers
That's making it worse.
I think most volunteers are well-intentioned people, but they think they're helping by just inventing something to get a voter on their side. Don't lie. Be straight up. Say, I'm not sure, but I'll try to get back to you. And mark that person, however you have to, on whatever paperless or app you're using. And if you're running a good campaign, you will get back to them. So, yes, sometimes we're like that guy. But,
Don't lie. They can see it.
So situations to think about.
Where does he fit into any of those?
To think about.
Oh, okay.
He's thinking.
So situations to think about. So first off, this is a bunch here. I might not touch on all of it. The response rates. It depends. If you've all door knocked, you know certain days are better than other days. Holiday weekends might be better than others. But generally, I think door knocking should be around 20 to 30% response rate, meaning they came to the door. So again, back to the time and resources. If you're only getting 20% of people, or 30-ish%, depending on time of day, all that, you really want to maximize your time because you don't have infinite time. You have a deadline, which is election day. So you really want to make sure you're hitting all the correct people that you have to. And I don't know if that's what I think my coworker made this slide, but generally positive, or maybe I made it, but I don't remember. But something to think about too is you might be getting a lot, and this happens all the time in the South because people are nice. So you might get a lot of people very nice to you, and you might think that means support. That doesn't mean support.
You're being polite.
Okay, so you might say, can we count your support? And they might tell you yeah, or they might tell you kinda yeah, but you took it as yeah, and you marked it down as yeah, but they didn't tell you yeah. So that's why you want to be super conservative with the positive, both extremes, the do not disturb types and the positives. Literally, unless someone tells me to go die, I'll probably be back at that door until they tell me they're voting for my person. Because it doesn't take anything, you know? So be aware of that, you know? I was working in a campaign in South Carolina, like I said, and we were getting all kinds of positive feedback, and I'm just like, I don't like this because it feels too good. Like, if this was correct, we're gonna win by like 80%, you know? So that's a problem because you sometimes get people who become lax and start in this. A lot of people are concerned this happening in Trump. They get lax because they think it's all set, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh yeah, like I
Need
can
to vote.
walk for 3 hours and everyone
do.
loves my guy. Everyone loves me. It's not like that, and you all know that. Most elections are like within a few percentage points. So just be aware of that. Don't, slow down just because it feels good. Doesn't always mean that it's correct. Take the data with a grain of salt. If data mattered, Hillary would be president,
That's
right? Because
right.
basically, no, like
Hopefully
her
someone say
campaign
that.
thought, what was it, Wisconsin or something, was like good.
Sealed deal.
like all set, and it was like
She
didn't-
did get the popular vote.
right, but that's not the rules of the game.
We still
Yeah.
hear that. Like,
Right?
we still say that.
Yeah,
Ugh.
I mean that's the most ridiculous argument. It's like the rules are set, right? You're playing by the same rules.
Yeah. Until you're not.
Until it
So,
doesn't go your
because
way.
Trump
That's
would
right.
say if that
That's
was
right.
true, then Trump would spend all his time in New York City
Right.
and LA.
Yep.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So combative conversations, things to think about. So don't argue with people. Not literally
Not a
pointless.
good idea.
So a good exercise a good example I like to bring up is, and I heard you guys talk about it a little bit, is we all have family members, loved ones who have different political views, the opposite, right? You've probably engaged with these people many times, and they still have those political views. Now, if you cannot convert your loved ones to what you believe,
Preacher brother.
how are you possibly
I'm from California.
going to convert a stranger in a 30-second conversation
No way.
at the door?
No way.
It's impossible.
No way.
So, so my point here is, if somebody starts to be combative, walk away. Mark them as not voting for your person or negative or whatever you got to do. Walk away, because there's other people. And for example, we keep bringing up Trump. In 2016, Trump that was the biggest Republican primary in attendance, like in turnout they've ever had. And a significant number of Trump voters are people who are like halfway through their life but just never voted.
Yeah.
Brand new voters.
Sure. Yeah.
So the idea that we somehow have to convert these people is made up, not real. There are people out there that want to vote for your candidate. You just have to have the right message, you have to have the right grounding, you have the right organization, all that. So,
What's knowing your rights?
yeah.
I was just looking at that too.
So, yeah, exactly that. So, couple things. You have a First Amendment right to go walk up to someone's door knock, and talk to them. They also have the right to tell you to leave, and if you don't, they can call the police on you, and you are now trespassing. So let's talk about no soliciting signs. What do they mean?
No soliciting.
Means do not
So
follow
what is
anybody
soliciting? What is a solicitation? So
Trying to sell
the
something.
legal
Trying
yes.
to sell them something.
The legal definition is the sale or advertisement of a product. Is Tom Tillis a product?
No.
Can I sell Tom? Maybe someone tries to sell Tom.
Yeah.
This is not the same as like a Coca-Cola can.
Right. But unfortunately,
is-
you can't say that to the person that
You
tells you
can't.
that at the door.
Absolutely, you shouldn't really. There's no
No,
point.
don't go there.
So, but my point is, back to the HOAs. So that's a tricky one, and my opinion on those are, if it's gated, whatever, leave it alone. Honestly though, if there's an open entrance to a public road, go knock it.
How about
You're
if you're
gonna get a lot of
literally
angry.
gated?
You're gonna get on and off angry people. You're gonna get supporters, and you're gonna get angry people. And quite honestly, you just walking on that road is not illegal. The Supreme Court has literally talked about this because it was a religious thing. It was people who were going door to door for, I think, Mormons. And the Supreme Court said they have a legal right to do that. So if I write on this piece of paper, you can't be here, and just put it somewhere, is that a law? Like, that's nothing. So I can walk down this street and I can go to that person's door, and if they tell me to leave, I'll leave. And you should leave. You shouldn't be like, oh well, no. Like,
Yeah.
you should leave. Because you're representing a cause or a candidate. You don't want to give them a bad representation. So now the new headline is, the volunteer got the cops called on them and arrested because they were sitting there waving the Constitution saying I have a right to be here. So take it case by case, okay? But yes, you do have the technical right to engage with people.
So if they have no solicitation signs, you're saying not.
I'm saying knock if you feel comfortable.
Okay.
Okay, like if you feel comfortable. If they have a "will shoot you" sign,
Yeah.
maybe not.
Private property, if they have a private property
Some
sign
people,
on it.
some people go, yeah, like this is a real situation. Some people have rural houses on long driveways with like 6 no trespassing signs at the front of their property. Don't leave it alone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, they're clearly, but if I'm talking about like a little no soliciting thing, just try it.
Okay.
You never know. Worst case, you mark it, do not disturb. They don't get contacted again. The literal worst case is they call the cops on you, and 99.9% of the time the police will just say, hey, yeah, they called us, what are you doing? I've had this interaction. So this interaction happened in Michigan. A police car pulled up inside me, and they said, "Hey, yeah, what are you doing?" "Oh, just out here for Steve Johnson for state rep." "Can you do that?" Yes. Yeah. And I'm like, basically, he was asking, is it okay? No, he was asking, is it okay for me to go door knocking, I guess. And I was like, yeah. Most of the time, the police come because they have to.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the time, they're honestly pretty chill. Because again, as long as you don't look like a burglar and don't look suspicious, you're fine. But sometimes the police will say, look, like, I legally can't drag you away, but probably leave this private neighborhood. So again,
Go ahead and leave.
remember your image, remember who you're representing, don't, try to be that, oh no, here's my constitution, because that's not going to help you. Quite honestly, I have gone back to neighborhoods. Like, just don't hit that house, If you know the house that called the police on you, just go to the next house on the other side of the neighborhood. Like,
No toilet papering, no throwing
Yeah.
tomatoes, just.
Mm-hmm.
so, part
What's the
3.
neighborhood tough guy on the last one? What was that?
Oh,
Neighborhood
there's always one. Well, maybe a few. And we know them
That
as
think they know everything.
we know them as Karens. We know them as whatever.
I'm gonna call the police on you.
I had a guy who was like very proudly, I'm on the HOA, and I'm like, that's great, man. That's awesome. Like, as if it's like a title, like a pride. And like, there's always this one. There's always one. Sometimes more than one. But you know the type.
Yeah.
My point is, even with those people, leave it alone.
Sorry I bothered you.
Yeah.
Have a good day.
Yeah.
Always be polite. Literally,
Yeah.
always
Yeah.
be polite. Because perfect example, actually. So in Fairfax County, Virginia, there was a Democrat volunteer who got on camera and went all over the internet. This person knocked on a black man's door, and this matters, right? Because now it is. So this Democrat volunteer knocked on a black man's door. The black person, voter, told him to leave, or said something about, oh, don't you see my no soliciting sign or something? I forgot, I could pull it up, but I forgot. And anyway, basically, the white guy, Democrat volunteer, started to basically combatively argue with this black gentleman
No,
until
you
the
don't
black
do that.
gentleman said, I'm going to call the police or something. And he eventually left, but the white guy started swearing at the
Oh,
black
for
guy.
Pete's
The
sake.
white Democrat, right? Started swearing. And now that went all over, right?
Yeah.
So they got that on video because the guy had one of those.
Doorbell things.
Yeah.
So girl,
And so my point is, why? Don't be that person. Like, why would you do that? Like, walk away. Literally, just not worth it. So things to think about after you're done door knocking. So you want to review the numbers. What did you learn? And how can we improve? So, just the straight up numbers. How many positives did we get? How many undecideds? How many negatives? And again, back to what I was talking about, does this mean we're winning? I don't think you're winning until election day's over and
I was
you
gonna
won.
say until they
Fat
actually
lady
do the
said.
ballot.
Right.
Hey.
Actually,
Sorry, no offense intended.
so an interesting thing about the 2016 campaign was that I was listening or watching something, I forgot, but basically some poll group saw the shift from people who were gonna vote for Hillary and voted for Trump, and it was somewhere in Michigan. There was just 2 weeks or so before election day, they saw this small shift, and that's when they started to be like,
How
what's
would
going on
they
here?
know?
Well, they didn't know at the time, but after the fact, they started to be like, oh, that's where it happened. And basically, there was this group of voters that were polling one way, but then started to poll another way. And the point is, you never really know when you're winning. But that doesn't mean always, don't be pessimistic. You want to come to these things optimistic, or else what's the point?
I don't pay
But-
attention to polls.
But never assume it's a done deal. So if you came home and this whole room came home and had 200 positives, 80 undecideds, 5 negatives.
And you're talking about the app that you have on your
Yeah,
phone
or
when
you
you're
can
doing that.
paper list.
which is
You
probably
can
why
paper list. You just have to mark it correctly.
Right.
But mostly nowadays people use some sort of app. But would that mean we're winning? I guess maybe that could show some level of support in a particular area you were in the district.
Never
maybe.
assume.
But like, no. So you got to go out the next day and do it again.
Sure.
So what did we learn? So personally, me, how I like to do things, I like to have a meeting immediately after the day is done. So not the day after, not the night after. Like, please give me 30 more minutes of your time. Talk about exactly what you just experienced, because that's when it's hot in your brain. That's when it's fresh. You know what I mean? So very important. We don't know everything, obviously, so maybe you picked up a local hot issue while you were knocking. Maybe you all come back and you're like, literally 80% of the people that I talked to mentioned this issue. Maybe you didn't even know it was an issue, right? But 80% cared about it. Sometimes I see Harnet's huge. In the county I worked, the district I worked in South Carolina was massive. So, interestingly, the bottom part of the county cared about one thing, and the other side didn't matter to them. But that's important because we still need those. Basically, how it worked out was our opponent lived down here, and we knew that he would get a lot of those votes, and we knew that we would get a lot of these votes. But we wouldn't be able to win with just these votes. We needed some of these votes. So when you are door knocking and you are coming back, maybe it's important to know like where you got that local issue from. So it's like if you were here, the issue in this part in South Carolina was they had like a sewage problem, the pipes or something. And that was a big deal, and these people don't care because their sewage is fine.
Yeah.
So, and another interesting part was the majority of the district was Lawrence County, and then the bottom was Greenwood County. And so the Greenwood people felt in the minority. They felt like, oh, well, why would I vote for Stewart, who was the guy who eventually won from Lawrence County, because he's not going to care about me because he's from Lawrence County and I'm from Greenwood County. Well, whatever. Keep that in mind too, right? You need to know your audience. But anyway, basically we determined that sewer issue was a problem, so we were now informed, and next time we hit that county, we were hitting them with, well, here's a solution. Here's a solution.
Right.
Here is Stewart's solution to your problem. Yeah, so also you end up, sometimes you work for outside groups. Freedom Works has a PAC. We can't legally interact with candidates. So sometimes it's just, even if you're a volunteer though, working for the campaign, you might not ever interact with the candidate always. So it's good to know like where the candidate's knocking. Like sometimes you'll be out and you'll be like, oh, there's some literature already here. Like they literally must be out right now. It's good to know so you're not like overlapping. So just keep that in mind too. But basically, this is the most important meeting you'll have. I don't like meetings. I think meetings are pointless most of the time. But this is the most important meeting you'll have, is the after the day is over. Quick 30-minute, what's the feel, what did you hear? So we can always improve, literally always, even if you win. So talk with your team. I do this all the time. Talk to them about, was your walkbook okay? Did anything go wrong during your day? Or just if you're using an app, was the app okay? Was the survey questions in the app relevant to what you're trying to accomplish here? Sometimes candidates hire like these fancy political consulting firms who are also organizing for 60 other candidates, and they literally give that candidate like 1% of their attention, so just basically a copy paste for all the other candidates, and the script might not be super relevant. So I'm sure this happens in GOP because they have so many candidates. So just think about those things, and then assess the data. Talk about all the happened, positives and positives, and then always be ready to change your strategy if you need. Like, you don't need to be fixed on one thing. many times will switch up next time we go out. We might do one thing today, tomorrow do a completely different thing. So with that in mind, it's very important to start early too, because that's when you can refine your strategies. If you only start door knocking like 2 weekends before election day, like, sorry, but you gotta do what you got here, you know? But if you start 6 months out, right? Now you can experiment. You can say, well, what if I approach the people in the southern part of the district this way? Did it work better? What if I do that in the northern part of the district? Did it work better? And you can start to figure it out. Oh, and that's basically it. So, any questions?
Nope. Pretty
We're all
self-explanatory.
Pretty
Yeah.
much self-explanatory, right?
We're all experts. We're all gonna win all the elections.
Yeah, right.
Let's hope so.
That's the plan.
Yeah.
That is the plan, not
That is the
necessarily gonna
plan.
happen.
Yeah.
So, no. A lot of common sense stuff, but like most people don't use it.
I hate to say it, but a lot of them